How do metaphors work? Hi, my name is Tim. I write for television. These are some of my thoughts. Everyone knows what a metaphor is. It's where one thing means something else. But I don't think a lot of people really understand how metaphors are constructed and what effect they have on the audience. And that's what I want to talk about today. Let's start with the function. The function of a metaphor is to make a plot more relatable. The plot of Lord of the Rings is a bunch of fantasy people need to throw a ring that makes you crazy into a volcano. This is not a very relatable plot. You've probably never been in a situation where you need to chuck some evil jewelry into a volcano, but when you see how the ring poisons Frodo, how he wastes away throughout the trilogy, and in the end comes to need the ring despite all the suffering it causes him, it might make you think of a much more relatable experience. Addiction. Many of us have struggled with addiction, and we recognize the emotions that come with needing something that is slowly destroying you. Get Out tells the story of a guy who's going to visit his girlfriend's family, only to discover that they are up to some brain-swapping shenanigans. Once again, this isn't an experience that anyone can relate to, but the experience of being a black man, entering a white space and feeling uncomfortable and maybe in danger is something that anyone who has experienced racism can relate to. Metaphors have another function, which is that they help us empathize with other people. Maybe you are a white person who has never experienced racism and you go to see Get Out, and then later you hear from someone else how the movie really nails the feeling of unease and confusion that comes from being a black person in white spaces. Now, you recall the feelings the movie gave you and you can use that memory to better understand what others have experienced. In this way, metaphors serve to smuggle unfamiliar experiences into our brains without us knowing that that's what they're doing until after the fact. This is part of the reason why Roger Ebert called films empathy machines. Now we know what the effect, the function of a metaphor is, but how is a metaphor constructed? The best way to look at it is you want to try to create a situation that applies to both the plot of the movie and your metaphor at the same time. When Bilbo asks to put on the ring just one more time, the line is written in the same way an addict might ask for one more fix. The look in Frodo's face when he sees what addiction has done to his uncle, the shame in Bilbo's eyes after revealing this side of himself, these are the exact things that would happen in an interaction with an addict. The situation is appropriate for both the fantasy plot and the metaphor. This clues the audience in. They see the scene and it subtly reminds them of an experience that they remember, not about a magic ring, but about something else. The next step of building a metaphor is consistency. If you establish that the ring is a metaphor for addiction, it has to continue to be that metaphor all the way through, or the audience won't be able to hang on to it. The fact that Frodo winds up unable to rid himself of the ring in the end is consistent with the metaphor. When talking about narrative tools, it's sometimes more helpful to look at an example of the tool being misused. District 9 tells the story of aliens coming to South Africa and being forced to live in ghettos. While there, a local bureaucrat is infected by an alien virus and eventually helps a nice alien go home. The metaphor in District 9 is obvious. It's about apartheid. Anyone who has experienced a racist police state will very quickly relate to scenes of the police abusing the aliens in their houses. But remember, the metaphor should be used to make the plot more relatable, not the setting. And the plot of District 9 is about an alien virus and trying to go home. These elements are completely inconsistent with the metaphor. Black South Africans under apartheid did not want to go home, they were home. So the movie doesn't give the audience a reliable, consistent metaphor that they can keep using to relate to the story throughout. It's no surprise that District 9 was written by white South Africans. Not all movies need metaphors. Sometimes a story is relatable enough on its own and it needs no deeper meaning. But as an artist, you have to be careful when writing a story. Even if you don't mean to make a metaphor, people will find them nonetheless, especially when writing science fiction or fantasy. So, now we've finished our crash course on metaphors, let's talk about sinners. The movie Sinners is set in 1932 and tells the story of the Smokestack twins, who are using mob money to set up a black nightclub in Clarksdale, Mississippi. Then vampires attack. The movie weaves in elements of voodoo, religion, the birth of blues music, and the spiritual power of music in general. The broad cast of characters tell the story of a marginalized community and how they rely on each other. Then vampires attack. The vampires in question are white, and their motivation is to convert the attendees of the nightclub, especially Miles, who's a young blues singer who has spiritual power with his music that the vampires want. So what's the metaphor? The obvious answer is that the vampires represent the white monoculture and how it absorbs and erases minority cultures. But there's an inconsistency here that really irks me. When the black attendees of the nightclub are converted to vampirism, they begin playing new music. They play traditional Irish folk songs. Why? In 1932, the Irish were seen as a minority in America, and they faced their own kind of discrimination. They were most certainly not part of the white monoculture. So why is it that they start playing Irish music? The metaphor is not consistent. At one point, the head vampire explains to one of the twins that the KKK are planning on attacking the nightclub in the morning. And if they all turn into vampires, they can fight back against the KKK. So if the vampires are supposed to represent white culture, why is he suggesting that they team up and fight against their white oppressors? There's a lot of discussion of religion in the movie, including traditional African folklore and Christianity, only it's the head vampire who states the most salient message in the movie. When he hears Miles saying a prayer, he reacts by saying,
"Long ago, the man who stole my father's land forced these words upon us. I hated those men, but the words still bring me comfort."
The vampire criticizes Christianity as a tool of oppression, all the while performing a metaphorical baptism. I think this one scene is the perfect encapsulation of this film's confused use of metaphor. In the film's post-credit scene, the movie depicts an aging Miles as he is visited by the ever-youthful remaining vampires from the night of the attack. Here, we see Stack, and he's young and he's hot, and he loves the blues. It's clear that becoming a vampire did not absorb him into the monoculture. He seems fine, like maybe being forever young and hot with your forever young and hot girlfriend is a pretty good deal. If you'll excuse me this one little tangent, I really hate it when vampire movies do this. If you establish the idea that being a vampire is a curse, then it has to actually be a curse. If being a vampire means you just get to be yourself but with superpowers and you live forever and you can't go out during the day, that's not really a curse. I mean, I already don't go out during the day. Vampirism needs to have something about it that is an actual curse, an actual drawback that makes being a vampire something you wouldn't want to be. And it also needs to make some sort of justification for why you're going to go out and kill all these vampires. If you want to see a good movie that actually gets the curse part of being a vampire, watch Thirst by Park Chan-wook. It's a great Korean film. What was I talking about? Oh, right. The metaphor in question in Sinners. I mean, does the movie even need a metaphor? Remember, the point of a metaphor is to make an unrelatable plot relatable. And supernatural horror is as unrelatable as a plot can get. No one is going to have experience being hunted by a vampire. And the strange thing is, Sinners is actually a really, really good movie right up until the point where the vampires show up. The first half of the movie, with no supernatural elements, tells a very straightforward story about community and music and religion and racism, and it does so because it doesn't need any metaphors. The story tells you everything you need to know, very plainly and very effectively. And maybe you're one of these people who doesn't think a movie needs to have a message, but the fact is, you're still going to look for one. As an audience, you're always going to be looking for those deeper meanings. We're expecting them. We are trained to look for them when we see movies, especially when we see horror movies, and especially now. Ever since Get Out came out, movies have been shifting in this direction where a horror movie without a metaphor basically doesn't exist. By no means am I saying Sinners is a bad film. I think it's actually a pretty good film. I just think that its use of metaphors is inherently broken. And I don't think the creators of Sinners really understood how to use metaphors effectively to get across a message. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next week.